So the UPSC 2026 prelims examination has shocked us all. Everyone is taken by surprise. I mean, the aspirants coming out of examination hall, their faces revealed everything. Everyone is shocked. Everyone is flabbergasted. This is the appropriate word for this particular situation. Now, in this video, I'm going to address two things. Number one, yes, this exam has shocked you, and it's not a pleasant surprise. It's a really bad surprise. Yes, this exam has shocked you, but you shouldn't worry that much because the cutoff is going to get very low. Now, how low? For that, we need to analyze this exam. Only then we can address how low will this cutoff go and how many marks are you above this cutoff. So through this, well, some of your worries would get addressed. So you shouldn't be shocked. The game is not yet over. Okay, you shouldn't feel sad basically. This is thing number one that I'm going to address in this video. And then thing number two, which I'm going to address in this video is there are many aspirants who have joined us for UPSC 2027 examination. They are watching this video to know about the prelims examination. So what should be your preparation style? What things you should focus on? What do's and don'ts you need to prioritize basically. I'm going to address that also for 2027 aspirants. Okay. So first things first, let's talk about, well, how low will this cutoff go? Okay. Now the cutoff is going to go low. That is true. That is for sure. And the reason for that is, well, twofold basically. First of all, the shock element was huge. There was a big structural break as far as prelims examination go. The weightage of different subjects was altered with, it changed dramatically. Then, well, you all know that the kind of questions asked this time, well, statement-based questions were really different, very different from the usual assertion reason questions, okay? Plus, ethics was also asked this time around. So it really shocked. So this is reason number one, the shock value would definitely lower the cutoff. Then number two is, very simply put, this time around, prelims exam was extremely lengthy. Yes, generally, well-prepared aspirants are not used to this lengthy prelims examination, okay? Well-prepared aspirants finish their paper in 1.5 hours, generally, and they take 30 minutes to check whether they have committed any mistake or not, right? This time around, many students have complained. Many of our own students have complained that they weren't able to finish the paper. Our paper was definitely lengthy because there were certain questions that had paragraphs, okay? And the options were confusing. So yes, these two elements, the shock factor and the lengthy factor, the exam was lengthy, would definitely reduce the cutoff, okay? Now, what would be the cutoff? For that, you need to hold on a little bit, have some patience, and I'll analyze the entire paper to reveal what can be the cutoff, okay? And which kind of students, which kind of aspirants can feel safe preparing for mains. And they can start their mains preparation from this very moment, okay? So let's analyze this paper, all right? And this time around, CSAT was also a big surprise. Let's take a look. So yeah, these are the three reasons, basically. Paradigm shift, okay? I have deliberately used the term paradigm shift because these three reasons would definitely bring the cutoff down. Okay, but not that down. Hear me out. First of all, there was a structural evolution. Basically, well, there were some changes in your curriculum itself, ethics-based questions. Then generally, current affairs questions were also shocking. Because generally what happens, that current affairs questions are basically fact-based, trivia. But this time around, they wanted you to apply your current affairs knowledge. Application part was very important. And this time around, you need to have in-depth knowledge of current affairs. Generally, people ignore it. Generally, they focus on just cramming certain facts. That is important. But in-depth knowledge is also important. This was done. Curriculum was shifted because we saw some ethics questions. There were so many things that basically means that there is a break from the old pattern. Then weightage mutiny. It is a kind of mutiny. Why? Well, generally, we are used to having polity questions around 20. Yes? And there are many other subjects. We are generally used to certain weightage formula. This time around, polity took a toss. Okay? And this time around, well, economy dominated and history dominated. 40% of your paper was from these two portions. That's quite a lot. Okay? And then CSAT filtration. Because in CSAT, there were some changes, okay? Certain kind of questions made a comeback. Plus the quant questions were really tough. Or let's not call them tough, let's call them lengthy. Your only saving grace was reading comprehension. But that too, around 24 questions were asked from that. So you can't cross 33% from that, just that. Okay. So yes, many students are going to flunk in CSAT. Yes, this is a very reasonable prediction. Okay, because already there are some students who have very weak CSAT. So now let's investigate the shock factor a little. Okay, so let's talk about the shock factor. Okay, there are various ways through which many aspirants were shocked, or you can say there was a structural break from the previous year question papers and today. Okay, so first of all, old versus the real, the genuine comparison. So there were three things that stood out as far as the comparison between previous PYQs or previous prelims papers are concerned and the 2026 prelims paper. First of all, current affairs used to dominate. And that is why I also used to say that, well, you need to be well versed in current affairs. This time around, current affairs did dominate. Okay, it's not a break from that. But the kind of questions asked from current affairs, well, they shifted. They became more deep, concept integrated. Basically, this time around, knowing current affairs alone won't solve your MCQ. You need to combine it with your static portion. That is extremely important. And that is why we are going to change our current affairs lecture series also for aspirants who are going to prepare for UPSC exam next time. Okay, we are going to change. All of you who are used to our daily current affairs routine, well, we are going to change certain tactics. The new current affairs lecture series would integrate static portion. Nonetheless, this was done. Then true, false, consider the following statements. Which of the above is are correct? Well, these type of questions were asked. But this time around, well, there were two statements and they asked the relationship between those two statements. Whether statement 2 supports, validates, contradicts. Now, this is a very different question, never asked in UPSC before. They have this habit of shocking you. UPSC always does this, but this time around, the magnitude of shock was really impressive. Okay? And yes, well, generally, UPSC, everyone thought that gone are the days when UPSC used to ask factual questions. Now, for the past 5-7 years, UPSC has shifted to conceptual questions. And with conceptual questions, you have this added advantage. Option elimination. Yes, you use logic to eliminate certain options. This time around, core, pure, factual questions have made a comeback. Match the following. Well, these things, especially in the history portion also, and current affairs, environment, current affairs, well, factual questions have also made a comeback, and that requires in-depth knowledge of facts. So these things have happened. So we need to change our current affairs tactics, and we will do so. Okay. So this was there. And then this arrow reveals everything. Well, everyone has been criticizing UPSC that you ask, well, these GS subjects, and then you test how a bureaucrat would perform in the services. Well, this time around, UPSC has turned around and said, we are going to check their bureaucratic aptitude as well. So some ethics questions were also asked. And applied current affairs were asked. You all are familiar with the questions. I don't need to repeat them, right? Then what happened? Well, ethification of prelims. Ethics-based questions were asked. 3 ethics-based questions. Corrupt vaccine contract. Very relevant to current affairs. We all went through COVID and these news items did dominate the news. Though the ethics questions, yes, many people are saying that we didn't prepare for ethics for UPSC prelims examination. We left it for mains. Therefore, we were shocked. But just remember that this is something that won't lower the cutoff because these ethics questions were not that difficult. Many aspirants who didn't prepare for ethics were able to solve these questions. Okay, so this wouldn't lower the cutoff. Just remember this fact. And tribal protest question, okay, well, bad record, all these things, UPSC wanted to say that we are going to check the aptitude of the bureaucrat we are trying to hire. That is why they have made this shift. Okay, this shift was, well, pending for a very long time. Everyone was criticizing UPSC curriculum. Well, they have turned around and showed that we update with time. Okay, next, this is something really weird. Okay, generally, we have questions which were there this time around also. Consider the following questions, consider the following statements. Okay, there are 3 statements and then the options are 1 and 2 only, 2 only, all these questions were there. Then, well, in 2024 or 23, I guess, assertion reason made a comeback, right? Assertion reason, or they'll say statement 1 and statement 2, and the options were, well, A option would be both statements are correct, and second statement is the correct explanation of A. Both statements are correct, but not correct explanation. One is true, two is false, two is true, one is false. These type of questions were there. No other relationship was inquired into when it comes to the relationship between two statements. They only expected you to know whether statement 2 explains statement 1. That's about it. But this time around, they have investigated three relationships between two statements. Whether statement 2 supports statement 1, whether it's supportive, whether it validates, proves that statement 1 is correct, or it contradicts. Well, this is something that tests your knowledge of GS, and it also tests your CSAT also a little, reasoning. This was a shocker. This might have, well, made students spend more time on questions, right? That is why this paper became a little lengthy. Okay, these were the questions. These isolated true false elimination or assertion reason, whether it's the correct explanation, well, they took a toss, simply put. Okay. Then the third thing was return of factual matchmaking. These questions, remember, Interpol notices, UN peacekeeping missions, government bodies, cross-border projects. Now, these were pure and pure factual questions. And let me tell this to you. These are the types of questions which would lower the cutoff, not the ethics questions. This would lower the cutoff because very few students have answered them correctly. Let me assure this to you. Many champion aspirants that we had, well, they weren't able to solve these questions. So if you also weren't able to solve these questions, or you weren't able to remember each and everything from current affairs, right? Well, don't worry. This will lower the cutoff. If you weren't able to answer these questions, many aspirants weren't able to answer these questions. So you are in the same boat, kinda, right? So don't worry about these things. But yes, these types of questions, which rarely people are able to answer, well, they have made a comeback. This would definitely lower the cutoff. Definitely. Right? And then the biggest shock of all times. Okay? Generally, the weightage given to each subject was more or less steady. Okay, yes, 4 or 5 questions here and there, but it was more or less steady. And that is why, well, many aspirants, before starting their UPSC preparation, used to plan each and every subject accordingly, used to allocate time based on this weightage pattern. Now they'll have to shift. If they're planning to give this exam next year, they'll have to shift their time allocation for each subject and their strategy also. Okay, because as you can see, well, the new weightage terrain, you can see history, economy, science and technology. Will sail you through 20 questions from history, art and culture, which is more or less expected sometimes. But economy, 19 questions, core economy also. And science and technology, 8 questions. This also you can expect. But polity taking a heavy beating. Environment, generally people expect more than 15 questions. This took a beating. And map-based geography, this took a little bit beating. And mind you, this map-based, location-based geography questions were not so simple this time around. They were not plainly geographical location-based questions. They were also investigating your geopolitical knowledge, not just geography knowledge, geopolitical knowledge as well. So this was a shocker, right? And well, this, I've told you, 20 questions from history, 19 questions, both these subjects, round about 40% of your paper. Unheard of. So basically, the weightage allocated to each and every subject. Well, that shocked many. And that was a problem. It definitely was. Right? Now, science and technology was also shocking. Many students prepare science and technology for prelims, I'm telling you, only from current affairs. And that's a good strategy. And this strategy might have served you this time around. But remember, science and technology questions were not from legacy topics like biotechnology or all these things, legacy nanotechnology. They were more from current relevant topics. And they expected you to have in-depth knowledge of AI, the buzzword. Well, after Operation Sindoor, defense technology became very big. So they wanted you to know this. Green hydrogen, because the government is big on green hydrogen. Genetic medicine, generic medicine also. And this chip that we have created, Dhruv 64. Well, science and technology also was a little different this time around. It was heavily dominated by current affairs, but well, you need to have in-depth knowledge of those current affairs. Static science and technology doesn't mean anything. Yes? And well, these are certain points that even geography was different, even environment was different. Death of easy map, geopolitical filtering required. Strait of Hormuz was there. Environment, make or break phrasing, strict focus on institutional climate change responses. So it was not just climate related questions. Okay, amensalism, commensalism, no. They were also talking about government's response or UN's response to climate change. Questions were there. And polity took a beating. Well, and yes, IR also expected you to have in-depth knowledge of regional groupings, BIMSTEC and all. Okay? And well, CSAT, the shock. Generally, CSAT shocks everyone, but people think that because you need only 33%, well, it's not that big of a deal. But this time around, it was a big deal because even securing 33% was made out to be a challenge. Reading comprehensions, round about 24 questions. Quant, 33 questions. But these 33 questions took a lot of time. So those of you who started with quant, well, must have spent a lot of time. And many of you might not have had enough time for the easier portion, and that is reading comprehension. And this time, 6 questions were from administrative aptitude, which used to feature in UPSC examination in 2014. Then they completely became absent, and now they have made a comeback. Right? So remember, the shock value was huge. Okay, the shock value was immense, and the lengthy examination also was, I mean, the shock value of this also, the length of the paper also was immense. And because of that, well, the cutoff is going to go low. But how low? Many people are saying that it will go very low, even in late 60s. Now, that is something which I think is too ambitious. I personally think, and this is based on my reading of the exam and my reading of the scores that my students have shared with me. Well, the cutoff is going to be around the way it was in 2023. It is going to be around 75. This is what I think. Now, some of you, I'm saying 72 plus minus 2, but it's not going to be minus 2. It's going to be around 73, 74, 75, around 75. So if your score is more than 75, well, rest assured, start preparing for mains. If it is between 72 to 75, well, you're on border. Okay, it's borderline. And if it's more than, I mean, it's less than even 70, well, I can say it is also borderline if you're securing 70 marks, but still, I mean, you should be less optimistic, a little less optimistic, but anything can happen. Predicting cutoff is a tricky game. Okay, anything can happen. Nonetheless, this is why I'm saying this. Why? Because, well, lengthy case studies were there, okay, which made the exam lengthy. Many people weren't able to complete it on time. Then statement relationship questions, which shocked people. Many of you have marked the correct answer. Many of you took more time but answered these questions correctly. And deep factual matches. This was required. And this time around, there is going to be a lot of negative marking. And that is why I think the cutoff is going to go as low as it was in 2023, 75, something around that number. Highly penalized guesswork. Highly penalized. There was very little room for, well, flukes. Okay? Many people have gotten, I mean, if you have given previous prelims examination, you might have gotten some answers, some questions correct, even if you just committed to them. You didn't know the answer, but it was a fluke. The room for fluke is very low, okay? Because if you are just doing guesswork, well, there is a high chance that you are going to, well, mark the wrong option. And that is why there is going to be heavy negative marking, which makes this exam, or which makes me believe that the cutoff can go as low as 72 also, right? So this is the reason. This is my prediction, 72 plus minus 2. If you are securing more than that, start preparing for mains. If you're not, well, wait for the result, but still prepare for mains, because mains will also help you prepare for next year's prelims examination. And now I don't need to tell you how useful mains examination is for prelims examination, because you saw ethics-based questions also in your prelims examination. So I don't need to tell you that your knowledge of mains examination, your deep knowledge of mains for mains examination is useful in prelims as well. So start preparing for mains any which way, right? So this is all you need to know as far as, well, this time around aspirants are concerned, UPSC aspirants are concerned. Now, those of you who want to prepare for 2027, okay, well, there are a few announcements that I need to make to you. Okay, listen carefully. Those who are targeting 2027. First of all, well, we are going to resume our daily current affairs lecture series, but with a twist. As you can see in this prelims examination, well, they demand current affairs coupled with static knowledge, right? Current affairs are not an isolated topic anymore. We need to couple it with your static subject knowledge. That is why we are not going to do daily current affairs like the way we used to do it. We are going to do subject segregated current affairs. And how will that function? Well, on Mondays, we will cover economy related current affairs for the past 1 week. On Tuesday, we will cover weekly current affairs from polity for the past 1 week. Wednesday would be international relations, Thursday would be geography and environment, Friday would be social issues, and Saturday would be science and technology. And we would focus more on contemporary topics of science and technology. So this would be your schedule from Monday to Saturday as far as current affairs go. We will cover 1 week's current affairs in one lecture, and we would focus on one subject at a time. This would be your current affairs schedule. And those of you who want to seriously prepare for UPSC 2027 examination, my sincere advice would be join our Gurukul batch. Well, this batch is tailor-made for you guys, okay? We are going to take care of everything. We are going to take care of the new pattern, the new prelims pattern. We are going to take care of, well, what is being demanded by UPSC now. And we know what UPSC demands, taking a look at this time's prelims examination. So we are going to take care of all the new kinds of questions, new focus areas, which subject you should focus on. And yes, this Gurukul batch is named Gurukul for a reason. Very simply put, we are going to bring back the traditional Gurukul, Guru Shishya model of our ancient times through this batch, okay? Because we are going to stay in constant touch. All my Gurukul batch students stay in constant touch with me, okay? Regular mentorships, Google Meets, phone calls, this all happens. So if you really want to focus hard for 2027, join Gurukul batch. And by the way, those of you who want to just study current affairs from us, well, the lectures are going to start soon. So don't worry, right? So yeah, that would be all from my side, guys. I'll see you with another topic in the next video. Thank you, everyone.